On this episode, we discuss mental health, a topic that I think we need to spread the awareness of in our industry to let people know they're not alone, what their options are, and as a bonus, I may reveal some of the issues I suffer myself. Keep listening. So I introduce Sean from the Shaka Project. Sean, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, mate. I really appreciate it.
No worries, man. We're going to talk mental health. So this is a topic I'm very passionate about. A lot of people probably don't know, but I actually do have some mental health issues myself, or have in the past. And I think we all have them at some point, or know someone that has. So it's an important topic to talk about, man.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah. It's every I think everybody has some sort of relation to mental health, whether it be their own story or someone that they love. Mental health is everywhere. It's every day. It's everyone too. So it's very very important topic to discuss for
Ye-
sure.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. All right. So, tell us a bit about the Shaka project and yourself. Like, what's it all about?
Yeah, mate. So the Shaka Project, it was started back in 2019. So we're about 6 years old now. And initially, it started as a bit of a passion project for me. I was running a few other businesses at the time, and I really wanted to do something to just to help people ignite the conversation around mental health. And that's all through my own personal experiences with suicide ideation and attempts. And it really was just a passion project, something to do on the side. And then it quickly overtook my life, and it grew really quickly, which I'm very very blessed for. And it was almost a bit of awakening for me to just sort of it showed me how big this conversation can be, and just how many people need to have this conversation and really love having these conversations around mental health and suicide prevention here in Australia. So it started off as a t-shirt brand. So we used to sell t-shirts and hoodies and singlets and all these different things. And they were essentially, conversation starters. The idea behind these t-shirts were that when you're wearing these t-shirts in the public, somebody that may recognize the brand can automatically understand and know that that person has empathy for mental health. That person is a safe person they can talk to about whatever they might be experiencing in their life. It was almost a permission slip. So that was the idea behind the t-shirts, was to generate some real awareness around the idea that if you need to speak to someone, if you need to talk about your own mental health, starting that conversation is the hardest part of it. Having that initial conversation with somebody is really, really tough. So if we can create I suppose, a tool using the t-shirts, hoodies, singlets, whatever it might be, to start a conversation, then we're almost, jumping over that first big barrier of not knowing how to start, and that's something that we're really, really passionate about doing. And 6 years later, mate, we've sort of been able to grow the Shaka Project. We're now a non-for-profit charity. We do work all over Australia, all over New Zealand. We've done some work throughout Asia and throughout Europe as well. Just igniting the conversation around mental health, around suicide prevention. We still do our t-shirts and singlets and hoodies and stuff too. That's a massive part of what we do. Just getting those conversation starters out there. And yeah, mate, it's been something that's been a really big blessing for me. It's great for my own mental health. It's been able to give me a career, obviously, and allow me to, use my passion for mental health and suicide prevention for good. And it's been an amazing couple of years. So I'm very, very
Yeah,
grateful.
yeah. That sounds awesome, man. And like you say, it's something that obviously is close to home, so close to the heart. So you're actually doing it because it's a real passion. It's not just a job, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Can I just ask, so for a lot of viewers that don't probably know what the Shaka is, how did the name come about? Like, what I know, can you tell people what the Shaka means and how you came up with it?
Yeah, so it's a pretty cool story. So it's a shaka as in the logo, the hand logo. And the reason that we started using it is it was a story probably about 6 months before I started the project, and I knew I wanted to do something around mental health, and I wanted to use t-shirts and hoodies and stuff like that as a bit of a conversation starter, but I had no name for it. I had no idea what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And I was at the playground with my now 11-year-old stepson, excuse me, and he was about 5 or 6 at the time, and he came off the slide. He pretty much ate shit off the slide, and I was being a really bad parent. I was standing around 100 meters away, and I was probably scrolling on my phone, not really paying attention. And I remember looking up to him and seeing him fall off the slide, and he looked over to me, I looked at him, and he threw a shaka up at me, and I threw a shaka back, and he sort of kept on playing. And it was a really cool way that we sort of communicated without necessarily using words.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea. That's the hardest part around mental health and having that conversation is initiating that conversation. So when I threw the shaka at him, it was sort of like hey, you okay? And he's like, yep, all good. And he kept on playing. So it was a really cool way that we communicated. And, we still do that to this day. We just throw a shaka up, and it's sort of a bit of a check-in. So that's essentially where the name came from, and the symbol. And we've been inundated with people saying, oh, I do that all the time with my son. So I've got my son a t-shirt, I've got a t-shirt. It's our cool little connection. And that's really, really beautiful to me, to be able to have connection with your kids through the shaka, because it's definitely something that I do with my mates and with my kids and essentially everyone in my life, obviously now.
Yeah.
It's that's the whole reason behind it too. So it's that story. He claims to fame, which he definitely should. And he's looking for royalties, I'm sure. But yeah, that's the background of it.
Yeah. No, good. Yeah, awesome story, man. Yeah, because I was thinking like I sort of thought it might be something like that, but then
Yeah.
you could just clarify. That's good. All right, that's cool. So you're saying you do like a whole range of things. What type of services that do you offer? So I know you're saying you got the t-shirts and you do like obviously like have chats with people. What sort of main services do you offer?
Yeah, so we go to workplaces, we go to schools, we go to mine sites, we go to sporting clubs all over Australia, and we essentially deliver suicide prevention workshops. And what these workshops entail is they're really, really raw, authentic conversations with everyone in the room. We have a bit of a no bullshit approach to this subject, and we think that's pretty appropriate, seeing that the subject is very, very real.
Hmm.
So we talk about cultures around mental health, cultures around when we look at the effects of alcohol, drugs, gambling, all these different things, especially in young boys and young men, and the link that has towards mental health. We talk about support-seeking behaviour, so how we can support our mates, how we can look after our mates, but also how we can look after ourselves and how we can seek some support if we're struggling. And I suppose the biggest one around these workshops is just destigmatizing the conversation. It's still a conversation that has a lot of stigma to it, and it's going to take a while for us all to get around that stigma. It's something that's been created over a long period of time. The idea that we shouldn't talk about mental health, and that we shouldn't express our feelings and all those different things too. It's been created over a very, very long period of time, so it's not going to happen overnight. But if we can destigmatize it with as many people as we possibly can, we can really assist people that are going through it to seek some support, and to feel safe and validated as well. And the main goal of ours is pretty simple. It's to stop suicide, and the statistics are way, way too high in Australia. So whatever we can do when it comes to encouraging the conversation around mental health wellness, around support-seeking behaviours, around checking in with your friends, that's the best thing that we can possibly do, just to hopefully change those statistics around suicide.
Yeah, no, good, awesome, man. It's good. It's good to have someone that's so passionate about it and a company that can help because I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't know there is help out there, or they feel like they can't tell anyone. So it's good to have something. Now, so that's a bit of information about yourself. So thank you very much, and the Shaka Project. Let's talk a bit more about mental health specifically. How do you define mental health? You know, and why is it? So you said it was important in that, but how do you define it? Like, what are the different types of mental health issues that people might have?
Oh, look, mental health is such a huge word, and it covers so many things in our lives. There is great mental health. People obviously people have when we talk about mental health, they go straight to depression, anxiety, BPT, all these different things too, which is fair enough. But there is good mental health. There's positive mental health. There's positive mental health wellness. There's obviously a lot of mental health illnesses, and things that we probably more associate with mental health. And because it is so broad, that's one of our barriers when we talk about mental health. Is I'm having a really good day today, so mental health wise, I'm good. I'm great. But there's a lot of people today that are having a really really bad day, so they're still experiencing mental health, just as I'm experiencing mental health. But unfortunately, their mental health is struggling at the moment too. So it's extremely broad. We've got mental health wellness. We've got depression, bipolar, PTSD. Personality disorder. There is just a very, very vast array of different mental health struggles and mental health and illnesses and stuff like that around. So it's a pretty broad sort of aspect. But if you ask me personally, what I think mental health is it's the most important aspect of everyone's life. It controls everything. It controls the way that we live, the way that we see the world, the way that our relationships run, the way that we see ourselves, which is a really, really big factor that I think a lot of people probably don't put enough time or effort into. And it controls the way that the world turns and works. So
Yeah,
it's something that we don't give it enough credit to. People always say, what's more important, mental health or physical health? Mental health is, in my opinion, 100 times more important. And you can only have physical health if you have mental health.
yeah,
So
that's it.
um, it is the most important aspect of everyone's lives, and it should be cared for.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. And I was walking with my wife yesterday because we like to take walks, like nearly every night we go for a walk. And it's speaking of mental health, it is actually, I reckon it's really good for you. Yeah, it is. Yeah, everyone says that. But we were talking about things, and I was saying like, what actually causes people to have mental health? Like, I don't know, what do you think are some of the causes of it? Like, what makes people go? I know when I say mental health, I mean like in a negative way.
Yeah, yeah. Look, there's again, it's very, very personalized. It's very there's no one factor. There's no one reason that people experience poor mental health.
Yeah,
There's obviously physical contributions. There's lifestyle contributions. There's childhood trauma. There's biological reasons. That there is just a million and one reasons that people
yeah,
experience ill mental health. The reasons that I experience mental health would be absolutely, completely different to what you may experience or what my next door neighbour may experience too. So,
yeah,
when we look at the big factors, when let's just sort of rationalise that age group between 20 and 35, stress around finances, career stress, social media, relationship breakdowns, cultural ideas and stress around living experiences, all these different things that cause, stress, anxiety, depression. Childhood trauma is something that isn't spoken about enough. We are getting a little bit more light on it now, but it is definitely coming through a lot more than it used to. But that's a massive factor in a lot of people's mental health.
yeah,
But just everyday thing.
yeah,
The world and life isn't easy for anyone, and there's hard parts of it. So it's about having that personal conversation and going through your personal journey, I suppose, to really understand what are these things that are creating my negative mental health, and understanding that process too, because everyone is going to be different.
Yeah, yeah. No, I fully understand what you said too, because they're the things that we actually, all those points that you just said are the ones we came up with as well. And one of them was childhood trauma. And I don't know, a lot of people probably think, oh, Ivan's really always happy, he's doing everything's really good. But I had issues in the past, and I went to see a counselor. And a lot of things he kept asking me, probing me, like, in your childhood, do you remember this? Or how were your parents when you were in your upbringing? How was this? And I kept saying, why does he keep going back to there? Like, I'm just stressed at work. Like, why is he? And then we realized that a lot of the issues started when I was a kid. Like, my parents arguing in front of me all the time. That sort of trauma plays on your mind, and it comes through when you're older.
100%. Yeah. Look, as kids, we're molded around what we see. We have the old saying, monkey see, monkey do, and we're molded throughout our childhood. And sometimes it can be really, really beneficial, but it's commonly a big factor of why adults act the way they are when they get through to adulthood. And it's often as well, I probably need to say, it's probably not often the parents' fault, that they don't go out there to, your parents didn't argue or anything like that because they wanted to cause trauma,
Yeah,
just as my parents didn't do what they did to cause trauma to me. They were just doing life, and that it's their first time as well.
yeah,
There is obviously situations where kids are growing up with drug affected parents and alcohol affected parents and domestic violence in the house and all that sort of stuff, and it's incredibly sad. And it's something that is having a massive effect on the next generation. And when you look at why those kids are experiencing that, you sort of have to go look back at the adults'
yeah,
childhood and say, all right, why are they acting like that? Why are they addicted to drugs or going through domestic violence or perpetrating domestic violence? So everything goes back to how we're raised, how we're the environments that we're in, and I suppose what effect that has on us as adults.
yeah, yeah. So, how can someone tell if they're personally experiencing like some type of mental health challenge or an issue, and when should they seek help?
Oh, look, it's again, it's very, very personal. When you should seek help is essentially when when you think you need to speak to someone, when you can see that it's having an effect on your life or the loved ones around you. Um, it's a really, really hard question to answer
Yeah,
because again, everyone's process is going to be very, very unique.
yeah,
But for example, the way that I see mental health is that if I could, I would suggest that every single person have a therapist or a person to talk to or a counsellor once a month, wherever it might be. I think everyone on the planet should have one person that they go and speak to once a week, once a month, every 2 weeks, whatever it might be, because just having that assistance there, being able to talk through, even if you're great, your mental health's really, really good, you're loving life, you're really, really happy. Uh, there's always something. There's always something that you may need to get off your chest. There's always something you may need to talk about. I'm extremely happy right now. My mental health's probably the best it's ever been, but I still speak to my therapist once a week. So it's definitely something I encourage everyone to do. Except for sort of waiting for that moment of, all right, I'm really bad now. Just get ahead of it. Have a relationship with your friends where you can talk to them if you need to, around your mental health and around what's going on, and just be that one step ahead. Because unfortunately, if we're talking about things like depression, depression doesn't really care about how good your life is. It doesn't care about how much money you're making or your career or how perfect your partner is or your family. It doesn't really care about that. It'll come and smack you whenever it really wants. So if we can sort of get one step ahead and understand that it's all a journey and seeking support is for the long game, then I think that can really, really help what everyone's experiencing. I hope
Yeah.
that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's good.
A long way around.
I was thinking when you were saying it doesn't matter who you are, I was thinking of The Sopranos. I don't know if you ever watched that series, but even the mafia boss has to go in to see a therapist, man. So,
Absolutely, yeah. That was a great example. You know, the
yeah,
opening scene, and he's talking to a therapist. You know, he was the hardest man in the city, and he's talking to someone, which is just it should be normalised.
yeah, that's it, man. That's it. All right. So I was sort of also thinking while you were talking, like referring back to like myself to say. So I'm going to probably use myself as a lot of examples, but Um, when I get like anxious, because I get anxious a fair bit, and used to be a lot worse. Now I've learned to deal with it. But I used to start like sweating. Get my tongue used to go numb. I remember I was managing a huge amount of people at one stage for like a big factory, and sometimes I'd be doing like a presentation in front of like 60 people. And I remember sometimes I'd be up there and I'd be all good, everything's good. I'm doing the presentation, and then suddenly I start sweating. And then I start picking up on the sweat, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm starting to panic. And then my tongue goes numb, then my fingers start going numb. And then I used to start like feeling like I'm going to faint. And then I used to say, I've got to go, guys. I used to just, at one stage, I had to walk out of a presentation.
Yeah.
And they took me to hospital because they thought I was having a heart attack, and it ended up being a panic attack. So yeah, so for someone that might be at work or at home and they start feeling, those sort of things, are they the typical type of things that everyone suffers? Do you know from your experience?
Yeah. Oh, look, anxiety is huge. It is something that, again, it's not talked about enough. Panic attacks are something that a huge amount of people have in completely different ways. Again, it's all very, very unique. I've had panic attacks before. I know many people that go through panic attacks on a daily basis. Go through breakdowns when it comes to panic attacks, and it can affect your physical health as just as much as it affects your mental health. So it's an extremely common thing, and when we look at anxiety. Again, it's extremely broad, but anxiety can be from simply not wanting to go into a big room of people because you don't really know anyone, and we put that down to someone just being an introvert, which is fine, but most of the time, if you go a bit deeper, it's just because they're anxious about the situation, which is completely
Yeah,
fine. It's a anxious feeling environment. And speaking in front of people, in front of a big crowd, you get clammy, you get the butterflies in the tummy,
yeah,
and your throat dries up and all that sort of stuff. That's the physical sort of show of anxiety. That's what shows up when you're struggling or when you're being anxious about the situation that you're in. And it's essentially your body. We all know the fight or flight response.
yeah,
When we're in a situation that we're anxious about, and that's what your body does. It essentially fights back and says, "Look, I'm really, really uncomfortable. So I'm going to do all these things to get out of the situation. I'm going to do all these things to heighten my stress levels about this situation." And it's an absolute killer. Anxiety is so hard. I know when I experienced my own anxiety battles. I couldn't answer the phone. I couldn't enter a room. I couldn't speak to my family and speak to my partner, or even hang out with my kids. My anxiety got the best of me that I couldn't even see my kids, and that had obviously a lasting effect on everything else I was experiencing too. So anxiety is something that many people experience in different ways. It's something that should be normalised. I know for myself, anxiety probably the last 2 years has been probably the prominent thing around my own mental health. I've got this. I don't know if you can see this wristband here.
yeah,
This is my daughter's wristband, and every time I'm sort of feeling a little bit anxious, I'll just inadvertently, not knowing I'm doing it, just start to do that. And that's just a little bit of my anxiety sort of, kickback. It's just to keep me calm, and it's sort of like my 10 breaths. I'll just start to flick that a little bit. And when I know that I'm, feeling really, really anxious, my knees and my legs I'm just always jolting around and fiddling and all that sort of stuff too, and looking around. And, I'm really lucky that my family and friends know that too. So when I'm starting to do those things, they can calm me down and make sure I'm okay and all those different things too. And I think the importance of that conversation is to, if you are experiencing some panic attacks, to talk to your friends about it, to talk to your loved ones, your partner, your husband, your wife, some work colleagues that you trust. Because if we have some knowledge around, you know, what happens when you're experiencing panic attacks, then it's really, really helpful that people around you know, because it's a time where they can step in, they can help you calm down, they can help you get through that moment, which is obviously a safer way to do it too. So, yeah, anxiety, mate. It's a prick. That's the only way I put it. It's
Yeah,
it's awful. It's horrible.
yeah,
Um, Many people experience it, and it should be spoken about a lot more for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Definitely worthwhile telling people because then they don't. Because sometimes you can do strange things, you know. Like I'm the same. I hate crowded places. We go to the shopping centers. I immediately start feeling the jittery, you know, like don't like all the lights, too much action, people everywhere, noise, flying, all sorts of things, man. I don't like, and my wife knows that. So same thing, she knows if I start acting up a bit weird or not listening or getting a bit confused, she knows that. All right, he's starting to get anxious. We got to move,
Yeah,
get out of here. You know, go to another place. And it's good. And the other thing is, when you do start telling people, like even if you're at work and like I used to be embarrassed to tell people that you know I get anxious and things. But then I started telling guys like, "Hey, listen, man, I get a little bit anxious and that, so just look out for me. You know, if I start, you know, sweating or just talking rubbish, whatever, just you know what's happening." And then they say, "Yeah, I get the same thing, man." And then we're like, "Oh yeah," and then we all start talking. And next minute, everyone's like, "Oh, I see a therapist. I see this." And it's like, hang on a minute, I never knew any of this. So
yeah.
you open up this whole by starting a conversation. You actually make it like a safe area where everyone starts talking and they open up. And next minute, you know that you're not the only one. Everyone's in the same boat.
You know what I call that, mate? So especially when it's with blokes, I call that the bro ball
Yeah,
effect. And it's essentially, you know, when one person starts a conversation and is vulnerable, you know, you saying to your mate or your work colleague, "Oh, hey, just letting you know that, you know, sometimes I get a bit anxious." That's showing a huge amount of vulnerability, and it's giving that person that you're speaking to permission to say, "Hey, I'm telling you what I experienced, so I'm giving you full permission. I'm not going to judge you if you want to speak about it too." And then they might speak about it, then someone over here speaks about it, and someone, and it's the bro ball effect. It's having that massive effect on the area that you're in,
yeah,
and it's huge. That is such a positive thing to do in the workplace, in you know, a group of mates, in a sporting club, wherever you are, where you're around people. To be able to do that is massive, and when we have those conversations and we normalize it, you know, one of the biggest things that one of the most common things that I get told after an event, so I'll go speak at, let's say, a footy club. The most common thing that I get back is people coming up to me straight after, and they say, "Yep, I've been there. I've been there." It's, you know, almost every single person I've ever spoken to after an event. That's what they tell me. "Oh, I've been there, mate. I've been there. You know, I've suffered suicidal ideation, or I've gone through anxiety. I've gone through mental health." It's so common. Everyone has experienced something, and if we have that one person that's vulnerable and opens up, it can have that bro ball effect, and it can make a lot of people feel like they can actually speak about it, and speaking about it can save a life. So it's an amazing thing.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And on top of that, we actually you mentioned before about kids and stuff, and I feel like for myself, and I think a lot of people probably have that, especially probably guys that are working and have families, probably have that pressure that you need to support the family, and then when kids come along, it's like another gear kicks in, and then you've got extra pressure because now you got more mouths to feed, you got more responsibility. And for me, like my wife always says that I had what do you call it, postnatal depression. She always says that I had it instead of her because after we had kids, I started getting really like anxious, and I used to get in these episodes where if the kids were crying and that, I used to start getting a bit crazy, and I used to have to call my mum sometimes and say, "Mum, can you just come over? Because I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm a little bit like, I don't know, like I don't know what the word for it is, but I used to get real like anxious and deep. And
Yeah,
then, yeah, no, and my wife said that, you know, I think you're suffering from postnatal depression because, and I was like, yeah. And then when I started talking to other guys at work, they're like, yeah, I was the same, man, because then you start worrying about these kids as well, not just yourself and your wife, you know?
yeah, 100%. The pressures of being a dad or being a husband, or you know, obviously, you know, being a mother and a wife and all that sort of stuff. it's there's a huge amount of pressure. And again, we talk about the stigma around mental health and around speaking about our feelings and emotions and stuff like that too. We can add a lot of things onto that stigma, and the stigma of the idea that the father's a provider. Um, that's been around for a huge amount of time. 50 years ago, women didn't work. It's obviously it's finally caught up, and it's great that we've got women working. But with all that stuff that happened 50, 100 years ago, there's now all this pressure that men must be providers, and we must provide for our family. And when we have kids, everything that we do is now, okay, you're now a provider. So if you don't work hard, or if you don't earn enough money, or if you don't do this, you're a bad father, or you're a bad husband, or you're bad. And it's bullshit. It's
Yeah,
rubbish. Your kids, something that I discovered pretty quickly is that my daughter doesn't care about uh, the house that we're in, doesn't care about the my car that I drive, doesn't care about the money in my bank account. She cares about dad being there, kicking the footy with me, painting my nails, all that sort of stuff. That's all she really cares about.
yeah,
She cares about having brekkie, lunch, and dinner. That's it. Every now and then we'll go for a trip down the beach. And that's the only thing that you really, really need to worry about. They're happy, they're safe, they're fed, they've got an education, and they're in a safe environment. But unfortunately, society has put so much pressure on not only dads but parents in general to give their kids the world, give their kids absolutely everything, and you must be making X amount of money. You must have a successful business. You must have some sort of influence on social media to be considered a good parent. And it's rubbish. It's absolutely rubbish, and it has a huge effect on mental health. A massive effect on mental health, on suicide rates, on self harm, on addiction, on all these different things too. So it's something with society that's really, really damaging.
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is. It's a cultural or societal expectation and influence. So yeah, you're right. It affects us, especially now with social media. I think a lot of people are using that to promote themselves, and like you always see the good things only. And
Mm.
then everyone starts to compare themselves, and we do that in our industry. We're like, oh, this guy's got 10 machines. What the hell am I doing wrong? Why can't I be like that? So then you start trying to push yourself, giving yourself pressure, and it just snowballs. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, 100%. It's comparison is a thief of all joy, and we compare our story to other people's story, not knowing their story. And you wouldn't read two books and compare the ending without reading the book. So
yeah,
it's a similar thing. You can't be comparing your life to other people's lives. If you've got health, your kids have got health, they've got a roof over their head, then you are luckier than a lot of other people around the world, considerably luckier. And we never really think about that. We never really consider that. So comparing ourselves to what other people have. And mate, I know a few people that are unbelievably successful. They've got millions and millions of dollars in the bank account. They've got unbelievable businesses, and they are some of the unhappiest people I know. And the services that we run, they are essentially our biggest clients. So it means nothing. Big businesses, big money, all that sort of stuff. Again, mental health doesn't care.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's true. What you see, it doesn't. It could be a facade. It doesn't always mean they're genuinely happy. And that's why I'm happy to talk about myself and that. Like some people probably look and go, "Oh my gosh, he's doing really well." He's all over social media. He's always happy. He's doing these videos. Everything's going well. But in the background, they don't know that I'm just another human, the same as everyone else. And
Yeah.
I still have moments where even this sort of stuff, I still sit back and think sometimes, am I doing the right thing? And then, some days I'm really happy and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to kill it and do all this. And the next day I'm really down, like, no, I'm going to give it up, man. It's rubbish. I'm wasting my time. That's how we are. That's how it happens to
Yeah.
everyone.
And that's mental health. You asked at the start what is mental health, and what you just said, that's mental health. That some days you're like, yeah, unbelievable, awesome, this is killing it. And some days like, nah, fuck it, it's hard, it's doing my head in, it's not working.
Yeah.
That's mental health in a nutshell.
Yeah.
You're really, really good, which means you're experiencing positive mental health. and then the next day, although again, the connotation that mental health links straight to self-harm, suicide, all these horrible things, because you're having a bad day doesn't mean you're experiencing those things. You're having a bad day.
Yeah.
And that might last for 5 days, it might last for an hour. But it's mental health. It's something that people go up and down and up and down. It's a roller coaster. So
Yeah.
that's probably the best example.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, just say, and I'll sort of relate it to the workplace, I suppose, because most of our listeners will be like people at work and that. What are the signs to look for? So just say, I'm working with a whole bunch of guys, and what are the signs to look for to see if someone might be struggling with some mental health issues, and then how do we approach them? So what are some of the typical signs that someone might be suffering?
Yeah, the hardest thing about this question is that there's so many signs that we can relate directly back to just normal life. So what I mean by that is, little things like people rocking up late to work constantly. The first thing we think is they're unpunctual, they're lazy, they're not getting out of bed early enough. Um, but when we look deeper, I think we can all probably agree that there's been mornings. Again, doesn't matter how good your job is. There's been mornings that you've woken up and you just thought, nah, fuck today.
Yeah.
Like I can't do today. And that's anxiety. That's mental health. You may be experiencing something else, and sometimes that person that's always late is someone that is the hardest part of their day is simply to get out of bed. And it's not through laziness. It's through their want and their need to get through another day. So little things like that, alcohol, drugs, gambling, massive factors. We speak about this a lot with our workshops. You might have a mate that every single weekend for the last 6 months he's been out on the piss. Friday, Saturday night, Sunday night, just going out, having a good time. And you probably see on social media he's having a good time. How good's this? Maybe he's just gotten single, maybe he's living up the life and all that sort of stuff too. And we portray that as he's having fun. But there's a very, very high chance that person's doing that because they're struggling. They're going straight to the bottle. It's something that I've done before. It's something that I know a lot of people have done before. Is that I'll just go get pissed and I'll be right.
Yeah.
And then we do that. We make it worse for ourselves. And I speak about this a lot as well, is that Sunday is the number one day for people to die by suicide in Australia. And we have a look at that, why that would be the reason. We're already struggling with mental health, undiagnosed or diagnosed. Friday comes around, you get on beers, maybe experiment with some party drugs. You put all your money through the TAB. Saturday comes around, you do it again, you're with your mates, you're having fun. Sunday comes around, your mates are gone, they've gone home. You've got a hangover, you might be coming down from some drugs, you spent all your money, and you're obviously struggling with diagnosed or undiagnosed mental health. It's a recipe for disaster, absolute recipe for disaster. So, if you've got a mate or a work colleague or a family friend that you see is drinking, is maybe experimenting with some drugs, is constantly at a TAB, it's time for a check-in. It's time to be that mate that says, hey, look, I've seen you drinking a fair bit. What's going on? Are you okay? You went through a breakup 6 months ago. Breakups are not easy, no matter who you are. You might say, nah, I'll be right, mate. She'll be right. I'm happy it's over. They're always hard, no matter what. So having that conversation and having that understanding that these things that people experience and go through and do in their life are massive factors to them experiencing some ill mental health. On the other hand, we have change in personality, and that could be someone that you work with that is always happy, always joyful, always out there, always loud, always talking, and then all of a sudden they're not. They might be really subdued, they might be really, really quiet. That's a sign that something's going on, that they're experiencing something. And then the other side, someone that might be really, really quiet, a bit of an introvert, and they're suddenly really, really abrupt. They're really loud. They may be really sort of confrontational. They might be really angry at a few things, vocal around a few things. Again, that's a sign that they're experiencing something too. And this doesn't always correlate to their suicidal or experiencing ideation, but it could just be a sign that they just need to have a chat about something. You know, they just need to talk about what's going on as well. So personality changes, drinking, drugs,
Yeah.
alcohol,
Yeah.
sorry, gambling, and you know, just everyday things, rocking up late to work, not coming to social events. You know, you might have a group of mates that once a month you go play golf, and there's one mate that hasn't been there for the last 3 times. You know, often we just say, oh, he's busy, or he's doing this, or he's doing that. But it might be time for a, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Um, is there something going on that we can that we need to chat about? So these little things that we can start to have a deeper thought around what's happening with our loved ones, and also those things I've just mentioned. You know, they're things that we can look at for ourselves as well too. So, am I going for the bottle a little bit too much? Am I getting home from work every night and going straight and getting a six pack? When 6 months ago I didn't do that, but now all of a sudden I am.
Yeah.
Am I going out too much, and why am I going out? You know, am I going out to have fun, or am I going out to cover what's going on? How many? You know, I've woken up 3 days this week and not wanting to go to the gym, or not wanting to go to work, or not wanting to see people. What's going on? Do I need to go speak to someone about that? So these are things that we can obviously notice in our friends and family and work colleagues, but they're also things that we can notice in ourselves, and that's when we can take those
Yeah.
steps.
Well said, man. Well said. So just say now you do notice some signs and all that. What are some of the options available to us for someone that is starting to feel, you know, either anxious or suicidal or wants to talk? What are some of the steps, or not steps? What are some of the, you know, things we can do, like and formal things as well? Like for instance, I know that I think when I was speaking to my doctor a while back, he said you get like 5 free counsel sessions a year or something. I don't know if that still exists or not, but yeah, things like that. Like, what are some of the formal things we can do?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the informal first,
Okay. Yep.
just because it's super important before we get to that stage. So we obviously everyone knows Are You OK Day, and it's a great day to encourage the conversation around checking with mates. But the biggest question we get asked around that day is, you know, if I ask someone if they're okay and they turn around and say, no, I'm not, what do I do then? Which is a fair enough question. You know,
Yep.
it's things we're not taught this in school. And also, how do I feel safe talking to someone? So maybe somebody asked me, how do I respond back? No, I'm not okay to this person. How do I feel safe? How do I feel like I can trust them? So a few steps that we talk about a lot is, firstly, the most important one is that the most important person in your life is you. The most important thing in your life is your own mental health. So if you are sitting here and you're thinking, all right, I'm concerned about my mate James, I'm really, really worried about him. I need to have a check in with him. But me, myself, right now, I'm really, really struggling. Then that's time when you speak to another mate and say, look, I'm worried about James. Me, myself, I can't do it right now, but can we team up and can we go have a chat to him? You know, that's not selfish to look after yourself first. I always use the metaphor of, you know, when you're on an aeroplane traveling with kids, and they go through the safety instructions, you know, where if oxygen masks fall and you're traveling with kids, put them on yourself before you put them on your kids. And you know, when I first heard that traveling with my daughter, I was like, that's
Yep.
ridiculous. Like
Yep.
her first always. And then I quickly realised that if I can't breathe, I can't save her. And it's the exact same thing when it comes to mental health. You must look after yourself first. It doesn't mean that person doesn't get a check in, but it's taking steps to, okay, I need to ask this guy if he can help me, or this person if they can help me. Check in with this person, and need to make sure I'm looking after myself as well. So that's the first thing. The second thing is validation, and this is the most important part of the entire conversation. I'll use James, this figure, this fake friend over here, for an example. Let's say James comes to me and he says, "Look, mate, I'm really, really struggling. I've just broken up with my partner, and work really, really sucks." Now, if I turned around to James and said, "Oh, mate, you know, plenty more fish in the sea. I didn't really like her that much. You'll be all right. You're a good-looking bloke. You'll be fine." And what are you talking about money, mate? You make a shitload. Like, you are making 3 times more than me. Like, what are you complaining about? As soon as I do that, I do a few things. Firstly, I tell James that, hey, mate, your shit doesn't matter. What you're experiencing, what's keeping you up at night, what's bringing you to tears, maybe, what's, maybe influencing suicide ideation, it's actually not important enough. So just shut up. Stop talking about it. And that's really, really damaging. Really, really damaging. What I'm also telling James is that, hey, if you are ever suicidal, don't come to me because I don't care. I've just shown you that. I don't care. Your stuff is not important enough. And that's really, really damaging. It's really damaging. So if we flip that conversation around and we say, hey, breakups, man, they fucking suck. We've all been through breakups. Relationships are hard. Breakups are hard. Tell me about it. What's going on? What happens? What do you want to talk about? And just sit there and listen. And the same thing around the job. Again, it doesn't matter how much money he makes. If he's stressed, he's stressed. If he's worried, he's worried. If he's struggling, he's struggling. So what about work is that they're struggling with? Can we do something? Talk to me about it. As soon as we do that, as soon as we validate somebody's experiences in mental health, we give them permission to keep talking. We give them permission to continue talking about what's going on, maybe grow on what's going on. So, okay, I know that I'm being heard now. So maybe I'll talk to them about this. Maybe I'll talk to them about that. And they can grow on that conversation too. So validation, it's one of my favourite words. If I could get it tattooed on me, I would. It is the key to encouraging conversation and continuing conversation that could possibly save a life. So I can't even underestimate how important that word is. And that actually is too. So validation is really, really massive. And those two factors, mate, looking after yourself first and validation is the first thing that we do when we're entering this conversation. When we look at the formal things, it's even when we're looking after our own mental health, obviously we've got support services online. We've got a lot of text services. I know Lifeline's got a text service now. I believe in Victoria it may still be 6 sessions with a psychologist or a psychiatrist after a mental health care plan. That could go in. We could talk for another hour about that. I don't believe that 6 sessions is enough.
Yeah.
We won't get political, but that's a great start. It's a really, really good start. And then one thing I will say is that I know a lot of people have really, really bad experiences with support services. For example, maybe Lifeline or psychiatrists. And I get it. I've had bad experiences too. The one thing I'll say is just try again. So some people have called Lifeline and they've got off the phone and thought that didn't help at all. I've done that too. I've done that many, many times. I've had psychiatrists and psychologists that just didn't work. It just wasn't a great fit for me. And I've been through probably about 8 or 9 psychologists. And I finally found a good one. It took me probably nearly 8 years to find one that's perfect for me. And so I just really encourage people to, if they've had bad experiences with either, I get it. That's totally normal. Keep trying to find. It's like a relationship. You're not going to find a partner, the first partner, or some people have the first partner you ever have, and everything's smooth forever.
Yeah.
You have to go through discovering yourself, discovering new people, discovering them, and it takes time, especially when you're looking for a psychiatrist too. So I definitely recommend that. But the first step when it comes to the clinical approach is a mental health care plan. Trying to go through your trusted doctor for that, and depending on where you are, I think Victoria is still 6. You can get a referral onto a psychologist or psychiatrist directly from that mental health care plan too. So that's a big first step. But if it's online services, Lifeline for tradies, TAX. I don't know if you've heard of TAX. That's through Trademark. TAX is a exceptional service. It's absolutely brilliant, really good for blue collar. Things like this that people can directly contact is a great way to start.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I think people need to know there are options out there because a lot of guys think, oh, I don't want to talk to anyone, or they're not sure where to start. Maybe so. At least they've got an option now. All right. No, that's good. Very, very good. So, I suppose medication is one way to try and help yourself if you're suicidal or you've got other mental health issues. what are some of the most effective coping strategies apart from like medication? What can people do to try and, reduce their anxiety or suicide thoughts and that?
Look, again, it's all very personal. It's all very unique to every single person. If I look at my own history, physical health is a massive factor for me. Calmness is a really big factor for me, and that probably goes into my anxiety as well. I live a very, very calm life. I try not to be too hectic with
Yeah,
things, and that's something that I need to do for my own mental health. I need to once a week turn my phone off all day, and that's just what I need to do. Don't go on social media. Um, sort of disconnect from the internet, all those different things. I need to do that. Some people work, some people exercise, some people travel for whatever sort of necessary they need, and some people rely on constant therapy and medication. Some people go down a holistic route, so meditation, breath work, ice baths, all those different things too. So again, we could write a book on the different things we could do, but it's every single copy is going to be different for everyone. So it's about finding your processes. It's about finding what works for you. I think the biggest thing when it comes to suicide ideation, which is really is the next level from mental health to suicide ideation. So if we're sort of looking at suicide ideation, a big part of that is looking at what's going on in your life right now. Who are the people in your life? What are some of the factors in your life right now? Are you going through some addiction? Are you going through some really negative relationships? Are you at a really bad workplace? Are you experiencing some sort of trauma? And having a really, really tough conversation with yourself around your lifestyle. Are you happy? Are you doing the things that you want to be doing? Is there things that you haven't spoken about before that you probably need to speak about? So that's another factor when we talk about mental health. Experiencing ill mental health. Again, our environment, the people that we're around, the factors of our life. Are we getting some good physical exercise? Are we looking after ourselves? Are we putting ourselves first? Are we doing things that we love to do? All these different factors that we look at. But personally, mate, for me, physical exercise is a really big factor. Going to the gym, going for a run, just going for a walk. Seeing my kids is massive for me as well. And the work, my work is something that I love doing. So that's a massively important thing for me. But everybody's going to be different. Everyone's going to be unique, and it might take some time for people out there to understand what they need. But as long as they're putting themselves first, they'll eventually find it.
yeah, yeah. And I think a big note is, people shouldn't be scared to move on from like, a group of friends that aren't, positively affecting you. Like if they're a bad influence, don't be scared to move away. You'll find other friends,
Yeah.
and it might end up being a bit something better for you. And the same as work. Like a lot of people are too proud to maybe leave their job, and it might be a real high pressure job. But if you're suffering, don't be scared to say, you know what, maybe I need to take a step back and do either a different position or a total different job. And even if you do it for a while until you recover, and then go back slowly back into that role, don't be afraid or too proud to move. You know what I mean? That's one of my probably big points of advice.
Yeah, yeah, and look, that sort of goes into mental health being the most important thing in your life, and it's more important in your career. It's more important than your relationships. People always look at me funny when I say this, but it's more important than your kids. And the reason that I say that is because if I'm not looking after my mental health, my kids have a pretty shit dad, and I don't want that. I want them to have the best possible dad. And if I'm not looking after my mental health, they won't get that. And that's what I mean by your mental health is more important than your kids. It's more important than your job. It's more important than your career, than your relationships. If you're putting that first, if you're putting steps in to make sure your mental health is thriving, and and you're looking after yourself mentally, everything else, your kids' happiness, your partner's happiness, your career, all those different things too, will reap the rewards. So it is the most important
Yeah,
thing.
I suppose it goes back to your oxygen theory in the
Yep.
plane. You can't help others if you haven't helped yourself. Yeah, Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, for sure.
No. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think we've had a really good chat here, and hopefully we've given a lot of insight to any listeners that are maybe struggling or have someone they know that's struggling. If anyone wants some more information or some help, can they contact yourself, or how does it work?
Yeah, look, you can jump through our Instagram or jump onto the website, shakaproject.com, and we've got some resources there as well that you can contact resources if you need to. Otherwise, get in touch, and we're really, really fortunate enough to be able to essentially have networks all over Australia too, so we can hopefully help out if we can. There's always some nice content that we put out there to help out people, and that's what we're really passionate about too. So hopefully we can get on there and render some assistance for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. All right. And to all the listeners as well, I'm always open. If you've got something you want to talk about, send me a message and I'll try and get back to you and have a bit of a chat, and happy to help if I can. All right. No, Sean, thank you very, very much for coming on and sharing your experiences, sharing, what Shaka Project can do. I always say Shaka. Is it Shaka or Shaka? I don't know.
Shaka, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like we get it all the time. We have people call it Shakar and Shaka and
Yeah.
Shaker, and it's
Oh,
okay, but it's Shaka.
the Shaka. There you
Yeah.
go. All right. Thank you for sharing that. And guys, yeah, if you need something, go and want some more information about the Shaka Project, go onto their website, and I'll also include the links to their website and Instagram in the description. To everyone that hasn't followed my Instagram, TikTok, and all the other socials, make sure you follow me on all those social platforms. And also, we've got a lot of information up on earthworkshub.com.au. All right. Thank you, Sean, for joining us. And I'll see all the listeners on the next one.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.